My hands shook as I stared at the glowing numbers on my phone screen. My checking account balance, $0.00. The color drained from my face faster than the money had from my account. I turned slowly to look at my father, Stephen, sitting smugly at the head of the long oak dining table. My family was still laughing and chatting, champagne glasses half empty after my sister Abigail's lavish wedding and our family reunion in the same night. When I finally found my voice, it cracked. "Dad, did you touch my account?" Stephen didn't even flinch. He just smirked, leaned back in his chair, and said, "We needed it more, Vivian. You'll understand one day." A lump formed in my throat. Needed it? That was my entire savings. My college fund. He snorted. "And now it's your sister's wedding fund. Family comes first." I could feel the tears building up, hot and stinging. My mom, Angela, didn't even meet my eyes. My brother Joshua gave me a small, guilty glance but said nothing. The laughter from my relatives echoed around me like cruel background music to my humiliation. I stood there trembling, every part of me shaking with disbelief and fury. My father raised his glass as if to toast his theft. My fingers tightened around my purse handle. "Then you won't mind what's coming next," I said quietly. They laughed again, but just then a loud bang shook the house. The door flew open and, "Hello everyone, welcome to today's video." Before we continue, let me know where you're watching from. Who knows, you might get a shout out in our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you love stories filled with twists, revenge, and family secrets. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Earlier that morning, everything had seemed perfect. The wedding decorations glittered under the Tennessee sun, laughter and love hanging in the air. I remember helping Abigail zip up her white dress in the church dressing room. She looked radiant, her smile soft and sweet. "You look beautiful," I told her. She grinned at me through the mirror. "You think Dad will cry?" "Dad doesn't cry," I chuckled. "You're right," she said. "But maybe this time he will." I wanted to believe this wedding would bring our family closer. But deep down, I knew better. Our family had always been a fragile thing, beautiful on the outside, broken within. Growing up, I had learned early that money could change the way people loved you. Dad always played favorites. Abigail, the golden child, could do no wrong. Joshua was the man of the house. Me, I was the quiet one, the saver, the dreamer, the one who worked 2 jobs to keep her college dream alive. Still, I came home, hoping the wedding would be a new start. At the reception, the mood was electric. Abigail and her new husband, Igor, danced under a canopy of fairy lights. My cousins cheered, my aunts wiped tears, and Dad gave a booming speech about family unity. I smiled and clapped, even though I could feel the weight of being an outsider in my own family. Then came the reunion dinner. The night blurred with laughter, gossip, and too much wine. The old family house in Nashville was filled to the brim. People I hadn't seen in years came to hug me, compliment me, and then whisper little jabs behind my back. It wasn't until after midnight that I noticed something odd. My phone buzzed, a text alert from my bank. Large transaction detected. I frowned and opened it, expecting a mistake. But as I scrolled through the notifications, my heart started pounding faster. Transfers, multiple transfers, all to a joint account, one that had my father's name on it. I froze. Surely this couldn't be real. Maybe a glitch? But when I checked the account directly, my chest went cold. My entire savings, over $38,000, was gone. I stumbled back into the living room where everyone was gathered. My face must have said everything because the room fell quiet. "What's wrong, Viv?" Abigail asked. "My money," I whispered. "It's gone." Dad didn't even blink. "We needed it." The words sliced through me. I felt my world tilt, like the floor was no longer steady beneath my feet. Everyone stared, but no one stood up for me. Not even my mom. That was when I realized I wasn't part of this family. I was a resource, a backup plan. As I stood there trembling, I remembered the old woman from earlier that week. Her name was Mrs. Crawford. She lived 2 streets down from our house. I'd helped her when her groceries spilled on the sidewalk. In return, she'd pressed a tiny silver key into my palm and whispered, "Keep this safe, dear. Someday you'll need it." And when you do, trust that kindness always finds its way back. I hadn't understood what she meant then, but now, her words echoed in my mind like a whisper from the past. I looked at my family, my father's smug grin, my sister's nervous glance, my mother's silence. Something inside me hardened. Then you won't mind what's coming next, I said, my voice trembling but sharp. That's when the loud bang shook the house. Everyone jumped. The lights flickered. The front door burst open with a force that made the windows rattle. Abigail screamed. Dad shot up from his chair. And standing there in the doorway, "Hey, before you scroll away, think about this. Some stories never get finished because people don't support them. Don't be the one who leaves a story half told. Hit that subscribe button now, or you might miss the moment everything changes for Vivian." And standing there in the doorway was a police officer. The room froze. The laughter, the music, even the clinking of the champagne glasses, all of it vanished in an instant. Only the steady thump of my heart filled my ears. "Is there Stephen Williams here?" the officer asked, his tone calm but firm. My father straightened, puffing out his chest. "That's me," he said. Behind the officers stood 2 more uniforms. Their flashlights swept across the room, landing briefly on me. "I'm Officer Reynolds from the Nashville Police Department," the man continued. "We received a report about a suspicious transfer involving stolen funds." Dad's smirk faltered for the first time that night. "Excuse me." The officer lifted his tablet. $38,000 transferred from an individual account belonging to Vivian Williams to a joint family account. "We just need to ask a few questions." Gasps rippled through the room. Abigail's jaw dropped. Joshua rubbed his forehead, muttering, "Oh no." I stood frozen, unsure whether to be terrified or relieved. I hadn't called the police. Not yet, at least. "Must be a mistake," Dad said, forcing a laugh. "This is a family matter." "Then you won't mind clearing it up," Officer Reynolds replied. Dad's eyes darted to me. "Vivian, what did you do?" "Me," I stammered. "I didn't." Before I could finish, the power went out. The room plunged into darkness. A collective gasp filled the air, followed by someone's glass shattering on the floor. "Stay where you are," one officer shouted. The next few seconds were chaos. Voices yelling, footsteps scrambling, someone crying. I reached for my phone, the faint glow lighting up my hand just enough to see Abigail's terrified face. Then, a flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, landing on the old family portrait above the fireplace. And right beneath it, the wall panel stood slightly ajar. Dad's voice trembled. "No one touched that." Officer Reynolds aimed his light at him. "What's behind there, sir?" I had never seen my father look afraid before. But that night, his face turned pale as snow. Before anyone could stop him, Joshua rushed forward and yanked the panel open. A small metal safe sat inside, half buried in dust. "Dad," Joshua whispered. "What's in here?" My father's silence said more than words ever could. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the story. If you're just joining us, trust me, you're going to want to rewind to the beginning of this one. And hey, if you enjoy true revenge stories that make your heart race, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You don't want to miss what's coming next, because this family is just getting started. The lights flickered back on, revealing faces drained of color. My father was sweating, his hand trembling as he stepped toward the safe. "Stephen Williams," Officer Reynolds said sharply, "I'm going to need you to step away from that." Dad's voice cracked. "It's just old paperwork. Nothing important." But I could see it in his eyes. There was something inside that safe. Something he didn't want anyone to find. The officers exchanged glances. "We'll be the judge of that," Reynolds said, pulling on gloves. Dad's jaw tightened. "You can't. This is private property." "Sir, we have probable cause." "Step back." Joshua hesitated, then handed over the key that hung from Dad's neck, something I'd never paid much attention to before. Reynolds crouched, slid the key in, and turned it. The lock clicked open. Inside were stacks of envelopes, each labeled with names. Mine, Abigail's, Joshua's, and several others I didn't recognize. Reynolds pulled one out and handed it to me. My name was written in my father's handwriting. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a forged signature. My signature. What is this? I whispered. Dad snapped. Vivian, put that down. But Reynolds took it. His eyes scanned the document. Looks like a withdrawal authorization form, he said slowly. Signed by you. That's not my signature. I shouted. My mother finally spoke, her voice small. Stephen, what did you do? Dad's face twisted in anger and fear. Everything I did was for this family. You all think money grows on trees? I had to make choices. You stole from your own daughter, Mom whispered. From all of us. His voice rose. She's ungrateful. I paid for her roof, her food, her life. That money belonged to all of us. Tears burned my eyes. No, it didn't. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the wind outside and the faint hum as the power tried to come back fully. Then the front door creaked again, and an old, frail voice broke the silence. Stephen Williams, the voice said, You always were predictable. Everyone turned. Standing there was Mrs. Crawford, the same old woman I had helped earlier that week. She looked impossibly out of place in her long gray coat, her silver hair gleaming under the porch light. Dad's jaw dropped. You. She smiled faintly. You don't remember me, do you? What are you doing here? I told your daughter that kindness always finds its way back, she said. Seems tonight it finally did. Reynolds blinked. Ma'am, who are you exactly? Mrs. Crawford stepped forward, her eyes locked on my father. I'm the one who gave Vivian the key to your truth. My heart pounded. What? She looked at me and smiled softly. The silver key, dear. You kept it safe, didn't you? I nodded slowly, reaching into my purse. The tiny key still hung from my keychain. Mrs. Crawford's gaze shifted to the officers. That key doesn't open the safe in that wall. It opens something far more interesting. Everyone stared, confusion thick in the air. What are you talking about? Dad demanded. She turned to me. You'll find out soon enough, child. But for now, don't let them twist your kindness into weakness. Before I could ask another question, she turned and walked out into the night. The officers, my family, everyone just stood there in silence as the door closed behind her. Abigail whispered, Who was that? I looked down at the small silver key in my hand and felt a strange chill run down my spine. Something told me that whatever this key opened would change everything. The night ended with my father being questioned in the kitchen, my mother crying quietly in a corner, and me sitting alone, clutching the little key Mrs. Crawford had given me. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because if my family thought stealing my savings was the end of my story, they had no idea what was coming next. I didn't sleep that night. The house was silent except for the creak of the floorboards and the distant hum of police radios outside. My father was still in the kitchen, being questioned. My mother had gone to bed crying. Abigail and Joshua locked themselves in their old rooms. And me, I sat in the living room, staring at the tiny silver key glowing faintly under the lamp. What could it possibly open? Mrs. Crawford's words played in my head like a song I couldn't stop hearing. You kept it safe, didn't you? That key doesn't open the safe in that wall. It opens something far more interesting. I turned it over in my hand. It was small, old, and worn, with a number etched into the side. 512B. That's when it hit me. Earlier that week, when I'd helped Mrs. Crawford, she dropped her grocery receipt, and I'd noticed the address printed at the top. 512B, Franklin Avenue. I shot up from the couch. Could it be the same place? Just then, Joshua appeared at the bottom of the stairs, rubbing his eyes. Vivian, what are you doing? I think I know what this key is for. He frowned. It's 3 a.m. I don't care. Viv, the cops said to stay put. I grabbed my coat. Then they can arrest me later. I walked out into the cold Tennessee night, the wind slicing through my hair. The streetlights flickered as I drove through the quiet neighborhood, the silver key clenched tight in my fist. Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, you're walking in on one wild story. We're only getting started, so smash that like button if you love stories that keep you guessing, and subscribe because trust me, Chapter 4 is going to blow your mind. By the time I reached Franklin Avenue, the sky was beginning to lighten with hints of dawn. The neighborhood was older, quieter, rows of faded houses with peeling paint and overgrown lawns. 5. 12B sat at the very end of the street. The porch light flickered weakly, as though it had been waiting for someone. I got out of my car, the air biting cold. My footsteps echoed on the porch as I reached the front door. The lock was old, but when I slid the key in, it fit perfectly. Click. The door creaked open. The smell hit me first: dust, old paper, and something faintly floral. The living room was filled with boxes stacked neatly against the walls, each labeled in careful handwriting. Names, dates, numbers. I stepped closer and gasped. Each box had a name I recognized, people from our neighborhood, even old friends of my parents. I picked one up at random. Harold Bennett, 2004. Inside were files, receipts, and photographs, records of money transfers, property sales, and debts. My stomach twisted as I flipped through them. Mrs. Crawford had been keeping records. But why? I turned to the next box, one that made my heart stop. Stephen Williams, 1999 to 2023. I opened it, my hand shaking. Inside were stacks of documents, bank statements, loan forms, contracts, and letters. And there, right on top, was a photograph. My father, standing next to a younger Mrs. Crawford. They were smiling. My mom was in the background, holding Abigail as a baby. "What they?" I whispered. A handwritten note was paper-clipped to the photo. He promised he'd return what he took. He never did. If you're reading this, Vivian, the truth is yours now. My knees nearly gave out. Mrs. Crawford had known my dad. And not just known him, she'd been keeping records on him for over 2 decades. I grabbed my phone and snapped pictures of everything. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around, my flashlight cutting through the dark hallway. Hello. Nothing. Just silence. Then I saw a shadow move, just a flicker, but enough to send my pulse racing. "Who's there?" No answer. I took a slow step backward, my phone light shaking in my trembling hand. Another creak. The air felt colder now, heavier. I swallowed hard. I said, "Who's there?" And then, out of the darkness, a voice answered. "Vivian." I froze. "Dad." He stepped out of the shadows, his face pale and twisted with something between rage and fear. How did you find this place?" My throat went dry. "You knew about this house?" He took another step toward me, eyes dark. "Of course I did. You think she gave you that key by accident." I backed up, clutching the silver key like a weapon. "She said the truth would find me." Dad's jaw tightened. "You have no idea what you're doing, Vivian. You're playing with things you don't understand." "What things?" I snapped. "You stole my money. You forged my name. And now this." He lunged forward suddenly, grabbing the box out of my hands. Paper scattered across the floor like snow. "Stop," I shouted. He was trembling. "You weren't supposed to see this." The next few seconds happened so fast, I barely processed them. He reached into the box and pulled out something metallic, a small handgun. I froze. "Dad." His voice broke. "You don't get it, Vivian. This woman ruined my life long before you were born. She made me promises, deals, that destroyed everything. I did what I had to do for this family." My heart thudded, so loud I thought he could hear it. "You don't have to do this." He shook his head. "I already did." He raised the gun. Guilt-tripping call to action 3 of 4. "Wait, before we go any further, take a second. If you were in Vivian's shoes right now, wouldn't you want someone rooting for you? Hit subscribe, because your support means more than you think." The next few seconds could change everything. The metallic click of the gun echoed through the small room. I took a step back, my hands raised. "Dad, please. You're scaring me." He hesitated, his hand shaking. "You shouldn't have come here." Just then, the door burst open behind him. A blinding beam of light flooded the room. "Police, drop the weapon." Dad spun around, startled. "Don't move." It was Officer Reynolds again, flanked by 2 other officers. I gasped, relief flooding me so fast I nearly collapsed. Dad froze, his grip trembling. "Stephen Williams," Reynolds said firmly, "put the gun down." Now. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then, Dad's shoulders slumped. The gun clattered to the floor. Reynolds moved in, cuffing him while reading his rights. I just stood there, numb, as they led my father out of the house. He didn't look back. Not once. When the door closed, I sank to the floor, the old boxes surrounding me. My hand shook as I reached for the photo of Mrs. Crawford and my family again. What had my father done to her? And why had she waited until now to reveal it? As dawn broke through the windows, I realized something. Mrs. Crawford had planned this all along. She had been waiting for me to find the truth. But I also knew this wasn't over. Because if she wanted me to have this key, then there had to be more. Something even my father hadn't known about. The sound of the police sirens faded into the distance, leaving the air heavy and hollow. I sat on the dusty floor of Mrs. Crawford's old house, surrounded by papers that had somehow rewritten everything I thought I knew about my family. The early sunlight filtered through the broken blinds, casting thin golden lines across the chaos around me. I wanted to cry, to scream, to do anything that would make the heaviness in my chest go away. But I couldn't move. All I could think about was that silver key. The one Mrs. Crawford had trusted me with. The one that had somehow led me here. And even after all this, after my father's arrest, after finding those boxes of secrets, I still had no idea what the key truly unlocked. I turned it over in my hand again. 512B was etched on one side, but the other had something I hadn't noticed before. 3 small letters carved so faintly I almost missed them. LCM. What does that even mean? I whispered. I opened my phone's browser and typed it in. Nothing useful came up, just some random business listings and music codes. But something told me that wasn't it. Then, I remembered the old church at the end of Franklin Avenue, Lakeview Community Mission. LCM. My breath caught. That had to be it. The drive to Lakeview Community Mission took only 10 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. My thoughts were spinning so fast I could barely focus on the road. The church sat on a hill, small and quiet, surrounded by trees that whispered in the wind. The morning light made the stained glass windows glow in shades of red and gold. I parked and got out, clutching the key like it might vanish if I let go. The heavy wooden doors groaned as I pushed them open. The air smelled of dust and candle wax. No one was there, just rows of empty pews and an old altar at the front. My footsteps echoed as I walked down the aisle. Then I saw it, behind the altar, a small iron lockbox bolted to the floor. It was old, maybe older than the church itself, and on the front was a faded engraving, property of LCM. I knelt beside it, my heart pounding. The silver key slid in perfectly. Click. The box opened with a soft metallic groan. Inside were 2 things, a stack of sealed letters tied with red string, and an envelope with my name written across it in elegant handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Vivian, if you're reading this, then the truth has finally found its way home. Your father wasn't always the man you know today. Years ago, he came to me for help when your family was on the verge of losing everything. I lent him money, not much, but enough to save your home. In return, he promised to protect something for me, a ledger containing the names of men who used our community to launder money. He took it and he never returned it. That ledger is still out there, and your father wasn't the only one who wanted it. If you found this key, it means danger is closer than you think. The people your father crossed won't stop until they find it. Be careful who you trust, dear. You may be kind, but kindness can make you a target. Mrs. Crawford. I sat there frozen, rereading the letter until the words blurred. A ledger? Money laundering? My father had been involved in something much bigger than stealing from me. And now those people were still out there. I looked at the stack of letters tied with red string. They were all addressed to different names. Some I recognized from the boxes in the house. The last one, though, had no name at all. Only 3 words, if I disappear. I untied it carefully. Inside was another note, this one in a hurry, the handwriting shaky. They found me. If Vivian ever comes, tell her the ledger is not what she thinks. It's hidden where he began it all, inside the roots of the family's first tree. The family's first tree? I murmured. Then I remembered our old family property on the outskirts of town. The one where Dad grew up, where we used to have summer barbecues before Mom stopped talking about it. There was a massive oak tree in the backyard. Dad used to call it the heart of the Williams family. Could that be it? The sound of footsteps behind me made me spin around. Vivian. It was Joshua. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice sharp. I followed you, he said, holding up his hands. The cops said you left. I was worried. I stared at him for a long moment. After everything that had happened, trusting anyone felt impossible. He noticed the letters in my hand. What's that? Answers, I said. Maybe even proof that Dad wasn't just greedy. He was hiding something. Joshua frowned. Viv, don't you think maybe you should leave this alone? I shook my head. I can't. Whatever this is, it's not just about him anymore. Someone else is looking for that ledger, and if Mrs. Crawford was right, they won't stop. Then let the police handle it. They can't. Not if it's what I think it is. He sighed, rubbing his face. Then I'm coming with you. I hesitated, but nodded. I didn't want to face what came next alone. We drove in silence toward the old family property on the edge of Nashville. The sky was overcast now, gray clouds rolling in like warning signs. When we reached the house, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It was abandoned, just as I remembered, boarded up windows, peeling paint, and that same giant oak tree standing tall behind it. The ground around it was damp from last night's rain. I walked toward it slowly, my shoes sinking into the mud. The heart of the Williams family, I whispered. Joshua glanced around nervously. Are you sure about this? I knelt at the roots, brushing away the leaves and dirt. My fingers hit something hard. A rusted metal box. My pulse spiked. Together, we pried it open. Inside were stacks of old papers, ledger pages, names, dates, and numbers written in neat columns. Each name had a note beside it. Large sums of money, transfers, all tied to the same organization, Lakeview Community Mission. My stomach turned. The church wasn't just a church. It was a front. And my father had been the one moving the money. Suddenly, the sound of gravel crunching behind us made us both freeze. A black SUV rolled slowly into the driveway, headlights cutting through the gray mist. Joshua whispered, Vivian, we need to go. I turned to grab the ledger, but before I could, a voice called out. Miss Williams, a man said as he stepped out of the car. He wore a dark suit, his expression calm but cold. I believe you have something that doesn't belong to you. Joshua stepped in front of me instinctively. Who are you? The man smiled faintly. A friend of your father's. He took a slow step closer, hands in his pockets. Now, why don't you hand over the book, and we can all forget this little adventure ever happened. My grip on the ledger tightened. You're not getting this. His smile faded. That's unfortunate. He nodded once, and the doors of the SUV opened. Two more men stepped out, each one holding something that glinted under the gray light. Guns. Joshua grabbed my arm. Run. We bolted toward the trees behind the house as the first gunshot shattered the air. The first gunshot ripped through the quiet Tennessee air, echoing off the trees. I felt it slice past me, so close I could almost feel the heat. Joshua yanked my hand, shouting, Go. We sprinted through the woods, mud flying beneath our shoes. Branches whipped my face, but I didn't stop. Behind us, footsteps pounded the ground. Another shot rang out, splintering the bark of a nearby tree. Vivian, this way. Joshua shouted, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward a narrow path that led downhill. The woods grew denser, shadows swallowing us whole. My chest burned, lungs screaming for air, but I couldn't stop. The ledger was pressed tight against my chest under my jacket, and all I could think about was the man's cold eyes, the way he said, I believe you have something that doesn't belong to you. We crashed through the underbrush, our clothes soaked, shoes slipping on the wet leaves. Joshua looked back, his face pale. They're still coming. Keep running. We broke through the trees and stumbled onto an old dirt road. In the distance, I saw the faint outline of a cabin, small, crooked, but still standing. This way. I gasped. We sprinted across the open stretch, lungs burning. By the time we reached the door, Joshua was doubled over, gasping. I threw my weight against it. It creaked, but gave way. Inside, the air was thick with dust. It looked abandoned, furniture draped in sheets, cobwebs in every corner. I slammed the door shut and pushed a chair against it. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Only the sound of our ragged breathing filled the air. Joshua slid down against the wall. What was that, Viv? Who are those people? I clutched the ledger tightly. I think they're the reason Mrs. Crawford was scared. The ones Dad worked for, or maybe the ones he stole from. Joshua wiped his face with his sleeve, eyes wide. And now they think we have what they're looking for. I nodded. We do. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Then why are you holding on to it? Give it to the police. They won't believe us. Not yet. This ledger, it's proof. If it really shows what I think it does, we can expose all of them. Joshua ran a hand through his hair. Vivian, this isn't some movie. These people just tried to kill us. I know, I whispered, my hand shaking. But if Dad was part of something this big, we can't walk away. Before he could reply, the faint sound of an engine hummed outside. We both froze. Joshua peered through the cracked window. They found us. My stomach twisted. How? We ran straight into the woods. They must have followed the tracks, he said. Viv, they're surrounding the cabin. Panic clawed at my chest. I grabbed his arm. We have to hide. We darted toward the back room. It was small, with broken furniture and an old chest in the corner. I lifted the lid. It was half empty, full of moth-eaten blankets. Joshua shook his head. That's not going to work. Before we could come up with another plan, the front door rattled violently. Open up, a voice shouted. Then another kick. The chair we'd used to block the door began to splinter. Vivian, Joshua whispered, eyes wide, we need a way out. My gaze darted to a small window on the far wall. It was cracked, but just big enough for us to squeeze through. Go, I whispered. I'll be right behind you. He hesitated. No way I'm leaving you. The door crashed open with a deafening bang. Go, I shouted, shoving him toward the window. He scrambled out as I turned to grab the ledger. 2 men stormed in, their flashlights cutting through the dark. One of them spotted me instantly. There. I dove behind the chest as a shot shattered the glass. Splinters rained down. Viv. Joshua's voice called from outside. Come on. I crawled to the window, glass biting into my hands. Joshua reached for me, grabbing my wrist and pulling hard until I tumbled out onto the wet grass. We didn't stop running. The forest swallowed us again, the sound of shouting fading behind us. My breath came in short, painful bursts, but we didn't slow down until we reached the old train tracks behind the property. Joshua collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. They won't stop. We just need to keep moving, I said, scanning the area. They won't risk chasing us this far in daylight. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. The ledger felt heavier in my hands now. Every page inside it was soaked, the ink smudged, but the names were still visible. I flipped through it, heart pounding. There, right at the back, was a signature. Stephen Williams. And under it, another name I didn't expect to see. Igor Carlson, Abigail's husband. My breath caught. Oh my God. Joshua leaned over my shoulder. Is that? Yes, he's in it too. He was part of this. Joshua's eyes darkened. So this isn't just about Dad. No, I whispered. It's about all of them. We sat in silence for a moment, the cold wind cutting across the tracks. I felt small, like the world had tilted into something darker and colder than I could handle. Then, from somewhere down the tracks, a faint light flickered. A train was coming, a slow freight line that passed through once every morning. Joshua stood. We can get on. It'll take us north. Where? Doesn't matter. Anywhere away from here. I looked down at the ledger, my fingers trembling. If Igor's involved, Abigail might be in danger. Joshua hesitated. You think he'd hurt her? I don't know. But if he's tied to the people chasing us, she needs to know before they come for her too. The horn of the train echoed through the woods, closer now. I made my decision. We go to Abigail, I said firmly. Joshua stared at me, then nodded. Then we better move fast. We climbed the embankment and crossed the tracks, heading toward the road where I'd left my car earlier that morning. Every sound in the woods made me flinch. The crunch of leaves, the wind through the branches, even our own footsteps. By the time we reached the car, my heart hadn't stopped racing. I slid into the driver's seat, hands shaking as I started the engine. Where does she live now? Joshua asked. In town, near the old marina. Then let's go. The drive was quiet. The world outside felt different now, heavier somehow. Every passing car made me think we were being followed. Every shadow looked like danger waiting to strike. When we finally reached Abigail's house, the sun was starting to rise. Her white curtains glowed in the morning light. It looked peaceful, too peaceful. I parked across the street and took a deep breath. Stay here, I told Joshua. Viv, no. Please, just let me talk to her first. I got out, clutching the ledger under my arm. My stomach twisted as I walked up the driveway. I knocked softly on the door. No answer. I tried again. Abigail? It's me. Still nothing. I reached for the doorknob and realized it wasn't locked. The door creaked open. Abigail. I called. It's Vivian. The house was quiet. Too quiet. A chill crept up my spine as I stepped inside. Abigail. No response. Then I saw it. The overturned glass on the floor, a streak of red wine trailing across the tiles. And beside it, something else. A single black glove. I crouched down slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I heard a voice behind me. Looking for your sister? I turned and my blood ran cold. It was Igor, and he was holding a gun. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The world seemed to shrink until there was nothing left but the cold gleam of the gun and the low hum of the refrigerator somewhere behind me. Igor's finger rested lightly on the trigger. His eyes were calm, almost polite, like he was standing at a dinner table instead of in the middle of a nightmare. Where's Abigail? I managed to say. He tilted his head, smiling faintly. You always were the clever one, Vivian. Too clever, maybe. I asked you where she is. She's fine, he said. For now. Joshua's voice called faintly from the porch. Viv? Everything okay in there? I froze. Igor's smile didn't move, but his eyes did, toward the window. Tell him to leave, he said quietly. My throat was dry. Josh, it's okay. I just need a minute. I heard my brother hesitate, then his footsteps retreating down the porch. Igor lowered the gun slightly, but didn't relax. You shouldn't have come here, Vivian. I took a careful step back. You were part of it, I said. The ledger, your name's in it. He sighed, setting the gun on the counter for a moment and rubbing his face. You think I wanted this? You think any of us did? Your father got us into this mess a long time ago. He was supposed to keep things quiet. Quiet. I snapped. You're laundering money through churches. People have died. He looked at me, then really looked, and something dark flickered in his eyes. And what do you think happens if that ledger gets out? If the wrong people see it? It's not just me they'll come for. It's Abigail. It's your whole family. I swallowed hard. You mean they'll kill us? He didn't answer. That was enough. Where is she? I asked again. His hand tightened around the counter. I sent her to a friend's place. Somewhere safe. I didn't want her caught up in this. Then why are you here with a gun? Because I know what you found, he said quietly. And I know you won't let it go. He stepped closer, and I caught the faint smell of cologne, the same one he'd worn at the wedding, sharp and expensive. You're brave, he said. But bravery gets people hurt. My heart pounded, so loud it felt like it filled the room. I don't want anyone hurt, I said. But I'm not giving you the ledger. His expression hardened. You don't have a choice. He reached for the gun. Before I could think, I grabbed the nearest thing, a ceramic vase, and hurled it at him. It shattered against his arm. The gun went off, the sound deafening. I ducked, glass raining down from the light fixture above. My ears rang. Vivian. Joshua burst through the door. Get down, I screamed. Igor swung the gun toward him, but Joshua tackled him, and they both crashed into the dining table. Plates and glass flew in every direction. I scrambled across the floor, searching for something, anything, to help. My hand brushed against a heavy metal candlestick. I grabbed it and swung. The gun clattered across the floor, skidding under the couch. Igor groaned, clutching his shoulder. Joshua jumped up, panting. You okay? I nodded, shaking. We need to get that gun and go. But before we could move, Igor started laughing. It wasn't a laugh of pain. It was low, steady, and chilling. You think this ends with me, he said, pushing himself to his feet. Blood ran down his arm, but he didn't seem to care. You have no idea who you're dealing with. He stumbled toward the door, still laughing. They're already coming. Then he was gone, out the front door, limping toward the street. Joshua started after him, but I grabbed his arm. No, he wants us to follow. He stopped, breathing hard. Then what do? We find Abigail, I said. We warn her before they do. We tore through the house looking for any clue. Abigail's phone was on the counter, next to her purse she hadn't left willingly. I checked her laptop, but it was wiped clean. Every file deleted. Joshua found a small note on the fridge, scrawled in Abigail's handwriting. If anything happens, call Angela. Mom, Joshua whispered. I stared at the note, dread twisting my stomach. She must know where Abigail is. He nodded. Then we go to her. We left the house through the back door, my nerves on edge with every sound. The street was empty, but the black SUV from before was nowhere in sight. We drove fast, taking side roads and back routes until we reached my mother's house on the other side of town. Angela was sitting on the porch when we arrived, wrapped in a shawl. Her eyes were red, tired. When she saw us, she stood slowly. Vivian, she said softly, I was hoping you wouldn't come. What does that mean? I asked. Her gaze flicked toward Joshua. You shouldn't have gone digging, sweetheart. Your father wasn't the only one keeping secrets. I felt the blood drain from my face. You knew. She nodded once. I begged him to stop, but it was too late. The people he worked for, they don't forgive. Where's Abigail? Joshua asked. She's safe. For now. Where? Mom looked down at her hands. With someone I trust. You have to tell us, I said. Please. They're coming for her, Mom. They already came for us. Her voice trembled. Vivian. The ledger. Did you find it? I hesitated. Yes. She took a deep breath. Then you're in more danger than you realize. Before I could ask what she meant, headlights swept across the yard. Mom froze. Oh no, she whispered. They found you. Joshua grabbed my arm. Viv, we need to move. But before we could reach the car, 3 black SUVs pulled into the driveway, engines rumbling like thunder. Doors opened in unison, and men in suits stepped out, forming a semicircle around the porch. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His voice was calm and steady. Vivian Williams. Joshua Williams. You have something that belongs to us. My mother's hand gripped mine. Her voice was barely a whisper. Don't give it to them. Joshua whispered. Viv, we're surrounded. The man raised his hand, and the others reached inside their jackets. I looked down at the ledger in my bag. Its pages full of names, numbers, crimes. My father, Igor, even people from our town. I had no idea what to do, but I knew one thing. Giving it up meant losing everything. And then, from the darkness behind the men, a familiar voice spoke. Step away from them. Every head turned. Standing in the beam of a streetlight, her cane glinting faintly, was Mrs. Crawford. She looked frail, but her eyes burned with a strength I'd never seen before. The tall man stiffened. You shouldn't be here, old woman. Mrs. Crawford smiled thinly. I told you once, you can't bury the truth forever. Before anyone could react, she raised her hand. A loud pop cracked the air, followed by a blinding flash from the driveway. Smoke filled the night. Someone shouted. Joshua grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the side gate. Run, Mrs. Crawford yelled. And as we sprinted into the darkness, the last thing I heard was her voice, steady and unbroken, shouting. It's time they paid for what they did. The night swallowed us whole as we tore through the side yard and into the woods behind Mom's house. Smoke drifted through the trees, glowing faintly under the headlights from the SUVs. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't dare stop. Behind us, shouting and chaos filled the air. There were more gunshots, sharp cracks that echoed through the dark. Mrs. Crawford. I yelled, but my voice was lost in the noise. Joshua grabbed my arm, pulling me deeper into the woods. Viv, we can't go back. I can't leave her. She knew what she was doing, he said between breaths. She saved us. Branches tore at my clothes as we ran. The earth beneath our feet was slick from last night's rain. I stumbled, almost falling, but Joshua caught me and pushed me forward. The woods stretched endlessly around us, and for a moment I thought we might actually lose them. The shouting faded, replaced by the rustle of wind through the trees and the low hum of insects. We finally stopped near a creek, gasping for breath. I dropped to my knees, clutching my stomach. My heart felt like it might explode. Joshua leaned against a tree, chest heaving. "We have to get out of Tennessee," he said. I shook my head, still panting. "Not yet." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Not yet?" "Viv, they're hunting us. You saw what they did." I pulled the ledger from my bag, flipping through the damp pages by flashlight. "This is what they're after. We can't just run and let them take everything. This book, this is proof. It's not just about Dad or Igor. These names, these are powerful people." Joshua wiped sweat from his forehead. "Then what do you plan to do with it? March into the police station? You think they'll believe us when half the department's probably in it." He wasn't wrong. I stared down at the ledger, the ink running slightly where the rain had touched it. Mrs. Crawford said she wanted justice. Maybe she's been building a case. Maybe she has someone who can help. "Vivian," he said quietly, "you saw what happened back there. She might be—" "Don't say it," I cut in. "She's alive. She has to be." Joshua said nothing. We followed the creek until it led to a narrow road. My car was gone, probably taken or destroyed. We walked in silence until we found an old service station with a single payphone out front. I dug through my bag and found the small folded note Mrs. Crawford had left me earlier, before all of this started. On the back, scrawled in her shaky handwriting, was a phone number I'd never noticed before. I lifted the receiver and dialed. The line rang twice before a low, calm voice answered. "Crawford Foundation." My chest tightened. "Is this Mrs. Crawford's office? Who is this?" "My name is Vivian Williams." Mrs. Crawford gave me a key. She told me the truth would find me. There was a pause. Then the man said, "Where are you?" I looked at Joshua. "Who are you?" "Someone who's been waiting for your call," the voice replied. "If you're with her ledger, you're not safe. Meet me in 2 hours at the train depot on 8th Street. Don't bring anyone else." "And Vivian?" "Yes. Trust no one." The line went dead. Joshua frowned. "Who was that?" "I don't know," I said softly. "But he knew about the key. And the ledger. Viv, this could be a trap." "I know. Then why go?" "Because if there's even a chance he's connected to her, it's all we've got." We walked until we reached a small diner on the edge of town. The neon sign flickered weakly, buzzing in the cold night air. We slipped inside, sitting in the back booth. A waitress brought us coffee that tasted like burned water, but the warmth helped. I kept the ledger hidden under the table. Joshua stared out the window, scanning the street for headlights. "Do you ever wonder," he said quietly, "how Dad got into all this?" I didn't answer. I'd been wondering that since the moment I saw his signature in the ledger. "He used to talk about helping people," Joshua went on. "About making sure our family was taken care of. Maybe it started with good intentions." "Good intentions don't end with guns pointed at your kids," I said bitterly. He nodded slowly. "No, they don't." We sat in silence for a long time. Somewhere down the street, a church bell rang twice. "Time to go," I said. The train depot was nearly deserted when we arrived. A few old benches sat under the yellow glow of flickering lights. A janitor swept quietly at the far end. I checked the time, 1:47 a.m. Joshua stayed hidden behind one of the pillars while I stood near the benches, trying to look calm. My heart was beating so hard it made my whole body shake. After a few minutes, a man stepped out of the shadows near the ticket counter. He wore a long gray coat and a dark hat pulled low over his face. "Vivian Williams?" he asked. "Yes." He looked around cautiously. "You brought it." I held the ledger close. "You said you were with Mrs. Crawford." "I was," he said quietly, "before she disappeared." "What happened to her?" He shook his head. "You don't want to know. But she left instructions. If the key ever changed hands, I was to protect the one who held it." "Protect me from what?" "From the people who funded your father," he said. "They're bigger than you think. That ledger isn't just evidence, it's leverage. The only thing keeping you alive right now." My stomach turned. "Then what do we do?" He looked toward the empty tracks. There's a safe house 2 hours north. I can get you there. But once you hand over that book, it's out of your hands. I hesitated. And if I don't hand it over? He sighed. Then you'd better learn how to run. Joshua stepped out from behind the pillar, startling him. The man's hand went instantly to his coat. It's okay, I said quickly. He's my brother. The man lowered his hand, but didn't relax. We move now, he said. They'll track the call you made. We followed him toward the platform. A freight train sat idling on the tracks, the cars stretching into the darkness. He opened one of the side doors and gestured. In here. It's safe. Joshua hesitated. You sure? But before the man could answer, a sharp crack split the air. The man stumbled forward, blood blooming across his shoulder. Get down, Joshua shouted. Gunfire erupted from the far end of the platform. Shadows moved between the train cars, at least 3 of them. I screamed as another bullet ricocheted off the metal beside me. Joshua grabbed my hand, pulling me behind a stack of crates. The wounded man groaned, clutching his arm. They found you faster than I thought. Who? I shouted. He looked up, his face pale. Igor's not working alone. He's bringing the rest. Joshua peeked over the crates. They're closing in. The man struggled to his feet. There's another way. Follow the tracks north. There's a tunnel half a mile down. You can lose them there. What about you? I asked. He pressed a small flash drive into my hand. If you make it out, find Agent Lucas Reed at the FBI office in Nashville. He's the only one left I trust. Everything you need to expose them is on that drive. Then he turned, firing a single shot toward the advancing shadows. Go! Joshua pulled me to my feet and we ran. The night exploded with noise, shouting, gunfire, the roar of the train's engine as it began to move. We sprinted down the tracks, gravel flying beneath our shoes. The tunnel appeared ahead, a black hole in the hillside. Behind us, the men were still coming. One bullet whizzed past my ear. Another sparked off the rail beside my foot. Faster! Joshua shouted. We dove into the darkness of the tunnel, breathless and shaking. The sound of gunfire echoed behind us, then faded as the train rolled between us and them. The tunnel was cold and damp. We stumbled forward until the light from the entrance disappeared completely. Joshua leaned against the wall, panting. What now? I looked down at the flash drive glowing faintly in my hand. We find Agent Reed, I said, and we end this. A distant rumble shook the ground beneath us. It wasn't the train anymore. Joshua's eyes widened. What's that sound? Before I could answer, a blast of white light flooded the tunnel behind us. Headlights, dozens of them. Engines roared. Voices shouted. They had found another way in. The tunnel came alive with noise, the roar of engines, the harsh glare of headlights bouncing off the damp stone walls, and the echo of boots pounding against the gravel. My breath caught in my throat. There wasn't anywhere to hide. Viv, Joshua shouted, grabbing my wrist. We have to move now. We ran deeper into the tunnel, the darkness pressing around us like a living thing. The headlights behind us grew brighter, closer. The air was thick with exhaust and fear. The sound of an engine revved hard. A black SUV burst into view, its tires skidding on the gravel as it barreled toward us. I felt the hot blast of air as it passed within feet, its mirror clipping the tunnel wall and shattering. Joshua pulled me to the side, shouting down. We flattened ourselves against the cold stone as the SUV scraped past. A man leaned out the passenger window with a rifle, firing blindly into the dark. Sparks flew where bullets hit the rock. Keep going, Joshua yelled, pulling me along again. The tunnel seemed endless. The air grew colder, damper, until I could see my breath. Up ahead, I spotted a faint glow and opening. There! I gasped. We sprinted toward it, lungs burning, the sound of pursuit closing in behind us. Another shot rang out. I felt something sting my arm, a graze, but I didn't stop. We burst out into the open and stumbled onto a rocky hillside, overlooking a valley below. The moon was high, casting pale light over the landscape. Down in the valley, I could see the faint glimmer of a small town. Safety, maybe. Joshua turned back toward the tunnel. They're coming. I looked around frantically. There was a narrow service path winding down the hill. It wasn't much, but it was our only chance. Go, I shouted. We half slid, half ran down the hill, rocks tumbling beneath our feet. The path twisted through thick brush, branches slapping at our faces. Behind us, engines growled again. They were coming through the tunnel. Halfway down, I tripped and fell hard, my knee hitting a rock. Pain shot through me. Viv, Joshua stopped, helping me up. Come on, we're almost there. I bit back a groan and forced myself forward. The small town below was closer now, a scattering of lights and an old railway station. As we neared the bottom of the hill, I noticed a figure standing by the road. For a moment, my heart stopped. It was Mrs. Crawford. She was leaning heavily on her cane, her gray hair tangled, her face bruised but determined. Mrs. Crawford, I cried. She looked up, relief flooding her tired eyes. Thank God you made it. Joshua helped me across the last stretch of gravel. We thought you were dead. She smiled faintly. Not yet. How did you survive? I asked, breathless. An old trick, she said, glancing toward the dark tunnel. I learned long ago that sometimes it pays to look weak until the wolves get close. Joshua looked back up the hill. They're still coming. We need to move. Mrs. Crawford nodded. There's an old warehouse by the tracks. We can talk there. Hurry. We followed her down the narrow road, my knee throbbing with every step. The town seemed abandoned, no cars, no movement, just the occasional flicker of a streetlight. The warehouse loomed ahead, its doors half-rusted, the windows broken. Mrs. Crawford pushed one of the doors open and motioned us inside. It was dark and smelled of oil and dust. A single lantern sat on a crate in the center of the room. Mrs. Crawford sat down heavily, wincing. They'll find us soon. But before they do, you need to understand what you're carrying. I set the ledger and the flash drive on the crate. I know it's evidence, but it's more than that, she interrupted. It's a record of an entire operation. The men who own half this town, politicians, police, even judges, they all have blood money tied to a fund your father managed. When he tried to back out, they turned on him. That's why he took the money from you. He was trying to buy protection. I stared at her, stunned. Protection? By stealing my savings. He thought he could buy his way out. But there's no buying out with these people. Joshua clenched his fists. So he wasn't just greedy. He was scared. Mrs. Crawford nodded slowly. He made bad choices, but not out of hate. Out of fear. The words hung heavy in the air. I wanted to be angry, but something in me softened. For the first time, I realized my father hadn't been a monster, just a desperate man caught in something too big. Mrs. Crawford's gaze shifted to the flash drive. That's the backup. I gave it to one of my contacts in case I didn't make it. You did well getting it out. Who's Agent Reed? I asked. An old friend, she said. He's been trying to bring these men down for years, but every time he gets close, someone shuts him down. That drive could be the break he needs. I nodded slowly. Then we get it to him. Before Mrs. Crawford could respond, Joshua's head snapped up. Engines, he whispered. We all went still. Outside, tires crunched over gravel. Headlights swept across the cracks in the wall. They're here, Mrs. Crawford said quietly. Joshua grabbed a rusted pipe from the corner. We can hold them off long enough to run. She shook her head. You won't make it that way. There's an old maintenance tunnel beneath the floor. It leads to the river. I knelt, feeling along the dusty floor until my hand found a metal ring. Together, Joshua and I pulled it up, revealing a dark opening below. Go, Mrs. Crawford said. What about you? I asked. She smiled softly. I'll keep them busy. I'm too old to crawl through tunnels anyway. No, I protested. We're not leaving you. She gripped my hand, her eyes fierce. Vivian, listen to me. If you die here, everything we've done dies with you. Take that drive. Find Reed. Finish this. The first bullet shattered the window. Joshua pulled me toward the hole. Viv, we have to go. Tears stung my eyes. Mrs. Crawford. Go, she yelled, turning toward the door. I slipped into the darkness, Joshua right behind me. The tunnel was narrow and smelled of earth and rust. Above us, I heard shouting, the crash of gunfire, and Mrs. Crawford's voice, loud and defiant until it was swallowed by the chaos. We crawled forward, dirt scraping our hands and knees. The tunnel sloped downward until I heard the rush of water. A faint light appeared ahead, the river. We emerged behind a line of reeds at the water's edge. I turned back toward the warehouse, smoke already curling into the sky. Joshua touched my shoulder. She knew what she was doing. I nodded, my throat tight. She gave us a chance. We followed the riverbank north, the flash drive clutched in my hand. The sound of sirens grew faint behind us, replaced by the gentle lap of water against the shore. The night was quiet again. Too quiet. I looked ahead and froze. Across the river, a figure was standing under the bridge, silhouetted by the moonlight. Joshua saw it too. Viv, who is that? The figure stepped forward, and even across the distance, I recognized the face. Stephen, my father, alive. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world went silent, just the rush of the river, the hum of the wind, and the pounding of my heart. The man standing under the bridge was unmistakable, even in the moonlight. Dad! I whispered. Stephen didn't move. His figure was still, his coat flapping gently in the wind. Joshua stepped forward, disbelief written all over his face. It can't be. He was arrested. We saw them take him. I know, I said. But he's here. Before either of us could think, Stephen raised a hand, motioning for us to come closer. Joshua shook his head. Viv, it could be a trap. I don't care, I said, stepping toward the riverbank. If there's even a chance he's alive, I need to know why. The river was waist deep and cold enough to burn. I waded through, teeth chattering, until I reached the other side. Joshua followed reluctantly, keeping his eyes on the dark shapes of the trees around us. When we reached him, Stephen finally stepped forward. His face was thinner than I remembered, lined with exhaustion, but his eyes, those same pale blue eyes, were clear. Vivian, he said softly. Joshua. I stared at him, trembling. You're supposed to be in prison. He nodded slowly. I was, but they didn't intend for me to stay there. They moved me 2 days ago, claimed it was for my safety. I knew what that meant. They were going to kill you, Joshua said quietly. Stephen's silence was answer enough. Dad, I said, anger and confusion warring inside me. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you take my money? Why get involved with those people at all? He sighed, the sound heavy and tired. Because I was desperate. You think I didn't know what they were capable of? I tried to walk away years ago, but by then it was too late. They own me. So you let them destroy our family? I said. You let them drain my account, ruin everything? He looked at me then, really looked, and for a fleeting second, I saw shame flicker in his eyes. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Vivian. I was trying to protect you. That money, it was supposed to buy your freedom. Freedom from what? He hesitated. From the debt I owed them. From the deal your grandfather made before any of us were even born. Joshua frowned. Grandpa, what does he have to do with this? Stephen rubbed a hand across his face. He started it. The fund you found in the ledger wasn't just a slush account. It was built decades ago by men who used the church to launder money. When your grandfather died, they passed the responsibility to me. I didn't want it, but they said if I refused, they'd take it out on my family. So you went along with it, I said bitterly. I thought I could end it quietly, he said. Then I found out they'd made Abigail's husband, Igor, part of it too. He wasn't just involved. He was the one they sent to keep me in line. I felt my blood run cold. Igor. Yes, Stephen said. He was supposed to keep an eye on me. But when I stopped cooperating, he turned. That's when everything started falling apart. Joshua clenched his fists. He tried to kill us. Stephen nodded grimly. He'll keep trying until the ledger is gone. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket, holding it up. It's not just the ledger anymore. Mrs. Crawford gave us this. She said it could expose everything. For the first time, a spark of hope lit in my father's eyes. Then you have to get it to read. You know him. He nodded. He was one of the few who tried to help me when this all began. I didn't trust him then, but maybe I should have. Joshua looked around nervously. We can't stay here. They'll be searching the tunnels by now. Stephen nodded. There's a cabin upriver, abandoned for years. We'll be safe there for the night. After that, I'll take you to read myself. I wanted to argue, to ask 1,000 more questions, but exhaustion weighed me down. The promise of shelter was enough. We followed the riverbank for almost an hour, the cold seeping into our bones. The cabin appeared just before dawn, a crooked old structure half swallowed by vines. Inside, it smelled of damp wood and dust. Stephen lit a lantern, the flickering light casting long shadows across the room. "Rest," he said softly. "We move again at sunrise." Joshua sat near the window, still on edge. I sank onto an old cot, staring at my father. "Did you ever love us?" I asked quietly. His face softened. "More than my own life. That's why I did everything I did, even if it looks unforgivable now." I turned away, blinking back tears. "Mrs. Crawford died for this. I'm not letting her sacrifice mean nothing." "I know," he said, "and you won't." But as I closed my eyes, a strange unease settled over me. Something in his tone didn't feel right, too careful, too rehearsed. The lantern flickered. I must have drifted off, because when I woke, dawn light was filtering through the cracks in the boards. Joshua was still asleep, head resting on his arm. Stephen was gone. Panic surged through me. "Dad!" I called softly. No answer. Then I noticed the ledger and flash drive were missing. "Joshua!" I shook him awake. He took them. He sat up instantly, confusion giving way to anger. "What?" I ran outside. The ground was wet with fresh footprints leading toward the river. In the distance, an engine started. "He's running," I said, my voice shaking. He took everything. Joshua grabbed his jacket. "We can still catch him." We tore through the trees, branches snapping underfoot. The sound of the engine grew louder, then fainter as we crested a small hill. Down below, by the edge of the river road, was Stephen, standing beside an old truck, the ledger open in his hands. I shouted, "Dad, stop." He turned toward me, guilt etched across his face. "Vivian, you don't understand." "Put it down," Joshua yelled. Before he could respond, another engine roared nearby. A black SUV emerged from the treeline, skidding to a stop on the gravel. Doors flew open. Igor stepped out, his arms still bandaged from the fight at Abigail's house. He smirked when he saw us. "Family reunion," he said coldly. Stephen raised his hands. "Igor, you don't need to do this." "Oh, I do," Igor said, leveling a pistol at him. "You had one job, keep the ledger quiet. Instead, you handed it to your kids." Joshua moved instinctively, stepping in front of me. Igor's smile widened. "Brave boy. Shame it won't matter." Stephen suddenly lunged, grabbing Igor's wrist. The gun went off, the shot echoing through the valley. They struggled, grappling for control. Another shot. I screamed, rushing forward, but Joshua pulled me back. When the gun finally fell, both men stumbled apart. Igor collapsed, clutching his chest, blood spreading across his shirt. Stephen staggered, his own shoulder bleeding. He looked at me, eyes full of pain and something else, relief. "It's over," he said weakly. I caught him as he fell, my hands shaking. "Dad, stay with me." He smiled faintly. "You were right, Vivian. The truth matters." I wanted to believe it was over. But as I held him, I noticed movement in the SUV. Another figure stepping out, tall and broad-shouldered, his face hidden in shadow. Joshua saw him too. "Viv, there's more of them." The man raised a gun, his voice cold and calm. "No loose ends." Stephen's eyes widened. "Run." The gunshot came a split second later. The sound of the gunshot split the morning air like lightning. I didn't feel it at first, just the shock of the noise, the echo bouncing through the valley, the smell of gunpowder hanging heavy. Then I saw Stephen slump in my arms. His eyes flickered, his hand tightening around mine. "Vivian," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Don't let them win." "Dad, no, stay with me." But his hand slipped away, and his head fell to the side. "Dad!" Joshua pulled me back, shouting something I couldn't hear over the rush of blood in my ears. Another shot rang out, grazing the ground near us. The man from the SUV was advancing slowly, his boots crunching over gravel. "Move, Viv," Joshua yelled, yanking me to my feet. We ran. The cold air tore through my lungs as we darted between the trees, bullets snapping branches beside us. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Away from the river, away from the body of the man who had once been my father. Behind us, the man's voice echoed through the woods. You can't run forever. Maybe not, but we could run long enough. We reached a ridge that overlooked the valley. Below, the narrow road curved toward the next town. I spotted a freight truck parked by an old bridge, its driver smoking beside it. Come on, Joshua said, pulling me down the slope. We stumbled onto the road just as the truck started to pull away. I waved frantically. Wait, please. The driver, a middle-aged man with a baseball cap, frowned but stopped. You two all right? Please, I said, breathless. We need to get to Nashville. It's urgent. He hesitated, then nodded. Get in. We climbed into the back of the truck among crates of tools and tarps. As the engine rumbled to life, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Joshua sat beside me, silent, his face pale. After a long moment, he said softly, he really tried to protect us, didn't he? I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. He made mistakes, but he died trying to fix them. Joshua looked at the floor. Do you still have the flash drive? I patted my jacket pocket. Still here. He nodded slowly. Then we finished what he started. The ride to Nashville took hours. Every mile stretched into eternity, but the closer we got, the more determined I felt. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about redemption. By the time the city skyline came into view, dawn had turned into a gray, restless morning. The driver dropped us near a rundown motel off the interstate. Take care of yourselves, he said, giving us a small wave before driving off. We didn't stop to rest. Using the last of the cash I had hidden, we found a taxi and headed straight for the federal building where Agent Reed was supposed to be. When we arrived, the guard at the front desk looked us over suspiciously. Do you have an appointment? No, I said quickly, but it's about a federal investigation. Please, tell Agent Lucas Reed that Vivian Williams is here. He raised an eyebrow but picked up the phone. A tense minute passed. Then he said he'll see you. 5th floor. Joshua and I exchanged a look of disbelief. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, a tall man in a dark suit was waiting. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Miss Williams, he asked. Yes, you're Agent Reed. He nodded. Come with me. He led us into a small conference room. Once the door closed, he said quietly, Mrs. Crawford told me if I ever met you. Things had gone very wrong. I pulled out the flash drive and set it on the table. She said this could expose everything. Reed took it carefully, turning it in his hand. Do you have any idea what's on this? Names, accounts, my father's entire operation, and the people who forced him into it. He nodded grimly. Then this is what we've been waiting for. He plugged the drive into a laptop and began typing rapidly. Joshua and I watched in silence as lines of data filled the screen. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, email chains linking businessmen, police officers, even a senator. Reed leaned back, exhaling. It's all here. I felt my knees go weak. So it's real. Oh, it's real, Reed said. And it's going to blow this state wide open. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of relief. But before I could speak, Reed's expression changed. He frowned at the screen. Wait, what is it? Joshua asked. He tapped a few keys. There's a file here that wasn't supposed to be part of this dump. What do you mean? He turned the laptop toward us. On the screen was a folder labeled simply, Angela. My heart skipped. That's my mom's name. Reed opened the folder. Inside were scanned documents, signatures, bank statements, photographs. My mother's face stared back at me from an old ID badge stamped with the same corporate logo that appeared throughout the ledger. What is this? Joshua whispered. Reed's expression hardened. It means she wasn't just a bystander. I shook my head. No, she tried to protect us. He scrolled further. She was one of the founding accountants. She helped build the system. The room spun. I felt sick. You're lying. Reed looked at me gently. I wish I was. Joshua slammed his hand on the table. We need to find her. Reed nodded. You might not have to. He pulled up a live feed from the security cameras outside the building. My stomach dropped. A line of black SUVs was pulling up to the curb. Reed stood abruptly. They found you. Joshua's voice was tight. How? We didn't call anyone. Reed grabbed the flash drive and pocketed it. There's a service exit in the basement. Go now. What about you? I asked. He pulled a gun from his holster. I'll buy you time. Find the old train yard outside the city. I'll meet you there with backup. Before I could argue, he pushed us toward the door. Go. We ran. The building echoed with alarms as we tore down the stairwell. The first explosion hit as we reached the basement, shattering glass, shaking walls. Smoke filled the corridor. Joshua coughed, covering his mouth. They're blowing the exits. I grabbed his arm. This way. We pushed through a maintenance door and stumbled into the open air behind the building. Sirens wailed in the distance. Another explosion rocked the street. We ran through the alleyways until my legs felt like they would give out. Every corner, every passing car, felt like another threat. Finally, we reached the outskirts of the city and collapsed near the abandoned train yard Reed had mentioned. The place was eerily quiet, rows of rusted trains stretching into the fog. Joshua leaned against a car, panting. You think he's coming? He has to, I said. We waited. Minutes turned into hours. The sun began to rise again, casting long shadows across the tracks. I started to think he wasn't coming when headlights appeared in the distance. A single car. Relief flooded through me, until I saw who stepped out. Angela, our mother. She looked calm, almost serene, as she walked toward us. Vivian. Joshua, you shouldn't have come here. Joshua's voice broke. Mom, what did you do? She sighed. Everything I could to keep you safe. But you should have left it alone. I felt my blood run cold. You were part of it. You've been part of it all along. Her eyes softened. I tried to stop it, but by the time I could, it was too late. You think your father was the only one they controlled. I shook my head. You helped them cover it up. You lied to us. Angela stepped closer. I lied to keep you alive. A second car appeared behind hers, Reed's car. He stepped out, gun in hand, aiming it squarely at her. It's over, Angela. She didn't even flinch. You don't understand, Lucas. They're already bigger than us. Reed's jaw tightened. Maybe, but it ends here. Angela's gaze shifted to me. Vivian, listen to me. If you give him that drive, you'll start a war you can't win. I stared at her, heart pounding. You started this war. For a moment, no one moved. The wind whistled through the empty yard. Then, before anyone could react, Angela reached into her coat. Reed shouted, Don't. 2 shots rang out. Silence. When the echo faded, Angela was on the ground. Reed lowered his gun slowly, his face pale. I dropped beside her. Blood stained her shirt, but her hand reached for mine. I only wanted to keep you safe, she whispered. Tears blurred my vision. You could have told us the truth. She smiled faintly. Some truths destroy more than they save. Her hand went limp. I sat there for a long time, the morning sun glinting off the rusted rails, my mother's body still in my arms. Reed knelt beside me. I'm sorry, Vivian, but now it's over. I looked at him, then at the flash drive still in his pocket. No, I said softly. It's not. He frowned. What do you mean? I stood slowly, my voice steady despite the shaking in my chest. They thought killing my family would bury the truth, but all it did was give me nothing left to lose. Reed watched as I turned toward the rising sun, my father's words echoing in my mind. Don't let them win. The truth was no longer a secret to protect. It was a weapon, and I intended to use it.